Have you ever been asked this question in a job interview? Tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker and immediately thought, should I tell the truth? Because if you say you never had a conflict, it doesn't sound realistic. But if you tell the wrong story, you might sound difficult to work with.
Exactly. Whenever I hear this question, I worry that anything I say will make me look bad. What if the interviewer thinks I'm the problem?
That's exactly why so many candidates struggle with this question. They spend most of their answer explaining what the other person did wrong instead of showing how they handled the situation.
So, this isn't really a question about conflict?
Not really. It's a question about communication, about teamwork, about emotional maturity, and most importantly, it's about what you do when things don't go as planned.
That makes a lot more sense. So, I don't need to prove that I was right.
Exactly. You need to show that you're someone people want to work with. So, listeners, stay with us because today we'll show you a simple way to answer this question with confidence, professionalism, and real examples that interviewers actually want to hear. Tom, when people hear this question, tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker. What do you think is the first mistake they make?
I think most people immediately start thinking, who was right? They want to explain why the other person caused the problem.
And that's where many answers go in the wrong direction. Instead of talking about how they handled the situation, they spend 2 or 3 minutes explaining everything the coworker did wrong.
Because they want the interviewer to understand that it wasn't their fault.
Yes, but here's something important. The interviewer is not trying to decide who won the argument. They're trying to decide whether they want to work with you.
Oh, that's a completely different way to think about this question.
Right. Many candidates believe this is a question about conflict, but from the interviewer's perspective, it's really a question about your professionalism. Can you stay calm? Can you communicate respectfully? Can you solve problems instead of creating bigger ones? Those are the real questions behind this interview question.
So if I spend my whole answer blaming another person, that doesn't really help me.
Not at all. In fact, it can hurt your chances. Imagine you're the hiring manager. A candidate says, "My coworker never listened to me. She was lazy. He always made mistakes." Even if those things are true, what impression does that leave?
Honestly, I'd probably wonder if this candidate complains about everyone.
Because every workplace has disagreements, every team has different personalities. No company expects perfect coworkers, but they do expect employees who know how to work through problems. That's why experienced interviewers listen very carefully to your attitude, not just your story.
So they pay attention to how I talk about the other person.
Yes, very closely. If you speak with respect, even when describing a difficult situation, you immediately sound more mature. For example, instead of saying, "My coworker refused to cooperate," you could say, "We had different ideas about how to complete the project." Notice the difference? The second answer doesn't blame anyone. It simply explains the situation.
It sounds much more professional.
Right. Now, let's look at another thing interviewers are evaluating. They're asking themselves, what happens when this person faces pressure? Because conflict usually appears when people are busy, working under deadlines, or solving difficult problems. Anyone can be friendly when everything goes smoothly, but how do you behave when things become stressful? That's what employers really want to know.
So this question is also testing emotional control.
Absolutely. Let's imagine two candidates. The first one says, "I got frustrated because my coworker ignored my ideas." The second one says, "At first, we had different opinions, so I suggested we sit down and discuss both ideas before making a decision." Which person sounds easier to work with?
Definitely the second one. That person sounds calm.
Exactly. And that's what companies value, because strong teams don't avoid disagreements. Strong teams know how to handle them. Now, here's another insight many candidates miss. When interviewers ask about conflict, they're also evaluating your communication skills. Can you listen? Can you explain your ideas clearly? Can you understand another person's point of view? Or do you immediately become defensive?
I never thought about that. I always focused on finding a good story.
The story matters, but your behavior matters much more. Think about it this way. If your story isn't dramatic, that's perfectly fine. You don't need a huge argument or a serious problem. Sometimes the best examples are simple. Maybe you and a coworker had different priorities. Maybe you disagreed about how to organize a project. Maybe there was a misunderstanding because of unclear communication. Those situations happen every day. What matters is how you responded.
So I don't need to impress the interviewer with a big conflict.
In fact, small conflict, professional solution often creates the strongest answer because it's believable. And finally, there's one last thing interviewers hope to hear: growth. They want to know, what did you learn? Did the experience make you a better teammate? Did it improve your communication? Did it teach you to listen more carefully? Every workplace values people who learn from experience.
So the best answer doesn't end with, "We solved the problem." It ends with, "Here's what I learned from it."
Because that's what turns a simple story into a memorable interview answer. Remember this: interviewers don't expect someone who has never experienced conflict. They expect someone who knows how to handle it professionally. And when you focus on respect, communication, teamwork, and growth, you're already answering the question they really wanted to ask.
That changes everything. I used to think I needed to prove I was right. Now I realize I need to show that I'm someone people can trust and enjoy working with.
Yeah. And now that you understand what interviewers are really looking for, let's build a simple step-by-step answer that you can use in almost any interview. Okay, Tom, you don't need a perfect story. You just need a clear structure.
That's good to hear, because when I get nervous, I always forget what to say next.
Right. That's why having a structure is so helpful. Today, we're going to use 4 simple steps. If you remember these 4 steps, you can answer this question in almost any interview.
Great. What's the first step?
Step 1 is describe the situation briefly. Keep it short. The interviewer doesn't need every detail. Just explain what happened in 1 or 2 sentences. For example, my coworker and I had different ideas about how to organize a project, or we disagreed about the best way to complete an important task. Notice something?
You didn't say anyone was wrong.
Exactly. The goal is to explain the situation, not to blame someone. Professional candidates describe the conflict objectively. They don't tell a story full of complaints.
That already sounds much better. So what's next?
Step 2 is explain what you did. This is the most important part of your answer, because this is where interviewers learn about you. Did you stay calm? Did you listen? Did you communicate? Or did you simply argue? For example, you could say, I asked if we could discuss our ideas together. I listened carefully to my coworker's perspective. I explained my opinion respectfully. These actions show maturity.
I like that. Instead of saying, "We argued for a long time," I should focus on what I actually did.
Exactly. Remember, the interviewer is hiring you, so your actions should be the center of the story, not your coworker's behavior.
Okay, situation first, then my actions. What's the third step?
Step 3 is show the result. Tell the interviewer how the situation ended. Maybe you found a solution together. Maybe the project was completed successfully. Maybe your communication became stronger afterward. For example, in the end, we agreed on a solution that worked for both of us, or we combined both ideas and the project was finished on time. This shows that you focus on solving problems instead of winning arguments.
So the ending should always be positive.
As positive as possible. Real life isn't perfect, but interviewers want to see that you can move forward. Conflict should end with progress, not more conflict.
That makes sense. And the last step?
This is the step many candidates forget. What did you learn? Don't stop after explaining the result. Tell the interviewer how the experience changed you. For example, I learned that listening carefully helps prevent misunderstandings, or that experience taught me the importance of open communication, or even, since then, I've made an effort to ask questions before making assumptions. These sentences show growth, and growth is something every employer wants to see.
So even a small conflict can become a strong interview answer if I show what I learned?
Yeah. Now, let's put all 4 steps together. First, briefly describe the situation. Second, explain how you handled it. Third, show the result. Finally, share what you learned. That's a complete answer.
I like this structure because it's easy to follow. I don't need to memorize a long script. I just remember the 4 ideas.
And before we finish, let's learn some useful phrases that fit naturally into this answer. You can say, "We had different opinions. I stayed calm and listened carefully. We discussed the issue openly. We found a solution together. I learned the importance of clear communication. That experience strengthened our teamwork." These are simple phrases, but they sound professional.
Can I ask one more question? Many people think they need an exciting story to impress the interviewer. Is that true?
Not at all. In fact, that's one of the biggest misunderstandings. A simple disagreement, handled with respect, is often much stronger than a dramatic conflict because it feels real. And remember, interviewers are not looking for exciting stories. They're looking for reliable coworkers.
I love that. So I don't need to prove that I've faced the biggest challenge. I just need to prove that I know how to work well with people.
Exactly. That's the answer every interviewer hopes to hear. Before we move into a real interview example, let's look at 3 common mistakes that can quickly turn a good answer into a weak one. Now, let's talk about 3 common mistakes that many candidates make when answering this question. The first mistake is blaming your coworker. For example, "My coworker was lazy. He never listened to anyone." Even if it's true, this makes you sound negative.
So instead of blaming the person, I should focus on the situation.
Exactly. Talk about the disagreement, not the person's personality. The second mistake is trying to prove you were right. Many candidates spend their entire answer explaining why their idea was better. But interviewers aren't looking for a winner. They're looking for someone who can work well with others.
So it's better to say, we had different opinions, but we found a solution together.
That sounds much more professional. The third mistake is forgetting the lesson you learned. Many answers end with, "The problem was solved," and then they stop. Don't stop there. Always finish with something like, "That experience taught me the importance of listening carefully and communicating openly." That final lesson shows growth, and growth is exactly what interviewers want to hear. Now, let's see how all of these ideas come together in a real interview.
Okay, Jack, now let's move on to the next question. Can you tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker?
Certainly. In my previous job, a coworker and I had different ideas about how to organize a customer project. We both wanted the project to succeed, but we had different approaches. Instead of arguing, I suggested that we sit down and discuss the advantages of each idea. I listened carefully to my coworker's perspective before explaining my own. After our discussion, we decided to combine the best parts of both ideas. The project was completed on time, and the client was very satisfied with the final result.
That's a good example. What did you learn from that experience?
I learned that disagreements are normal in any team. What's important is staying respectful, listening carefully, and focusing on the solution instead of trying to prove you're right.
How has that experience influenced the way you work today?
Now, whenever I have a different opinion, I try to communicate openly and understand the other person's point of view first. I believe good teamwork comes from trust, respect, and clear communication.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
So, Tom, today we learned that workplace conflict is not something you need to hide.
Exactly. Interviewers don't expect you to have a perfect work history. They expect you to handle challenges professionally.
And remember our simple four-step structure. First, explain the situation briefly. Second, describe what you did. Third, share the result. Finally, tell the interviewer what you learned.
Keep the focus on communication, teamwork, and finding solutions, not on blaming other people.
When you show that you stay calm, listen to others, and learn from your experiences, you demonstrate qualities that every employer values.
Now it's your turn. Tell us in the comments, have you ever had a disagreement with a coworker? What did you learn from it?
And if today's lesson helped you feel more confident for your next interview, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Focus English with Cece, and keep practicing with us.
Keep learning, keep practicing. We'll see you in the next lesson.
Bye for now.
Goodbye.